Tony in Virginia. Tony, what's going on?
Hello?
Hey, Tony, can you hear us?
Yes.
Hey.
Loud and clear.
All right, if you could, just mute the stream in the background. We can kind of hear it on our end.
Oh, sorry.
You're good. You're good. What is it you want to talk to us about, Tony?
Hey, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Could you repeat that for me again?
Yeah, so what is it that you wanted to talk to us about?
Oh, nice. So I was just going to say that I've been watching your videos, and I've actually followed your story about particularly about how you met with Anthony.
Yeah.
Magnabosco.
Yes.
And then I noticed that you had a show, and I watched your show, and I was really glad that you was doing a show like this on a program like this because it's almost like a safe space for people to kind of express their beliefs, particularly, and you can start to explore them. And I kind of think it's really good need for conversation because nowadays conversations aren't the same as they used to be anymore.
Absolutely. And Tony, you worded it so beautifully. A safe space for people to express their beliefs. If someone's coming in with man, I think the dinosaurs were planted by aliens and those aliens also brought us Jesus. To the rest of us, that might sound really crazy, but if somebody truly and sincerely believes that, we don't want to make that person feel alienated or else we're just going to make them feel even more disenfranchised, right? We want to have, these kinds of conversations with people, and that's kind of why I want to start this show, right? To kind of have those interesting conversations. So thank you for acknowledging that, and I'm glad you enjoy the show.
Thank you. So I was kind of discussing basically because for me, I actually kind of grew up in both, grew up and had some experience on both of your end, and then also ex-cult and about the different aspects of religion. Because I used to be an evangelical Christian, kind of like you, Dan. Yeah. And I used to go out there. I was about 18 years old. I went out and evangelized on campuses, and and went to church and read the Bible and all that. And then also, which was great because that time I didn't really know any people in the area I was in, and I was also in college as well. So I was like, oh, this is a good idea to make new friends and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But then I think not too long after I realized that this church group isn't necessarily. I just kind of realized that they don't hold the values that I hold, but. At that time, I just was like, I didn't really have anyone I could really say this to, or I felt like I couldn't, because the church I went to had very, very special rules.
Hey there, we just got ExCultBaby back with us on the line. We'll get here on video in just a second. Go ahead and finish your story, Tony.
Yeah. I went there. I went to church and did all the things I was doing, but then I realized that there was also some hidden catches, and this is why I started that ex-cult, where I can kind of relate to ex-cult in a way because the church has very, very strict rules on dating. It has strict rules about same-sex marriage. It had all these really kind of very conservative views.
Yeah, that's go on. Sorry. Yeah.
And for me, it took me a long time because for me being an evangelical Christian and then myself now actually a non-religious gay dude. So it's kind of I had to come from that and be accepting of myself because I'm gay as well. So gay.
Yeah.
And I had to make sure that I was okay with that. And once I was okay with that, I said this isn't for me. But at the same time, I looked at these people as well, so I had to wait till time was right to leave because I didn't want to try to go there and I don't have any plans, and I don't have any plans of where to go after that.
Yes, dude, I had the same experience. It was look, I'm really not believing in a lot of this anymore, but these are all of my friends now, right? I dedicated so much time to this group. I went to the Bible studies. I went to the all the meetings and stuff. And it was so hard to kind of disengage from that. And especially where I was living at the time, there really wasn't a community for me to go to kind of replace a lot of that lost time. And I was still interested in having some of the kinds of conversations that they were having in some ways, right? Like I was still interested in talking about religion. I was still interested in talking about the Bible in particular, like biblical scholarship and stuff. But, the groups I was with, I mean, how many youth groups do you go to where you really dig deep into the biblical scholarship on things, right? Like mine did a little bit, but not to the extent where it was satisfactory, right? At most, it was like an apologetics class, and the social pressures in those kinds of groups, right? Like they don't want you to actually have a conversation. They want you to agree with whatever the person who's talking at the time is saying. They want you to just kind of accept what's kind of happening. Like if someone is giving you a kind of spiritual experience, they want you to kind of validate that, right? Like there's no room for communicate. Like, well, maybe it was this, maybe it was that, there is we want to respect other people. We want to respect their beliefs and how they interpret the world. But there's also times where we really need to talk about this stuff. And sometimes, especially if we're talking about strict rules, like you were talking about, like on dating and stuff like that. Even when I was a Christian, I thought, I thought the Christian dating rules were nuts. Like I had to read Wild at Heart. I remember my girlfriend at the time really wanted me to read that, and they talk about like biblical manliness and like biblical right? Manliness, yeah, like no, dude, like like biblical manliness meant like having multiple wives and like you know what I mean? Like depending on which part of the book you were looking at.
Bible, in the Bible there was there's things about polygamy in the Bible and how it was kind of like glorified for a man to have many wives. Or they call concubines. Concubines, I think that's what they call it in the Old Testament. And then not only that, it was kind of funny because when I did the Bible studies and everything, the reason I actually kind of realized, hey, this isn't for me is because of the things that they believed in particularly, but then also at the same time, I actually looked on YouTube videos and I found Aaron Ra. I found Aaron Ra and I heard, and I kind of was like listening to what he said, some of the things he said. And I was like, this stuff's in the Bible? Okay, let me go in the Bible and actually go through it. And then I went to Old Testament. I was like, wow, there was a lot of horrific things in the Bible, and the things that they didn't teach you that they didn't really go into that in the Old Testament, particularly in the Bible study class they would take that was taking a lot of stuff when I was on my way to becoming an evangelical Christian. They didn't go into that. And so to me, it's kind of like the Bible to me in a way is kind of like the New Testament. It's kind of like the Walt Disney films not Disney, but Walt Disney stories that happy endings. But then when you go to the original source with the Grimm fairy tales, it's like night and day. So the Grimm fairy tales is nothing like the Walt Disney films where it's just all happy and roses and stuff like that.
Absolutely, and it's a when you went in it as long as I did, maybe 20 years of my life in this religion, and you're like, how did I not hear about all of this stuff? Like I knew about some of the weirder stuff as kind of like Bible trivia, but like I also had never actually read the stories myself. Like I didn't realize like there were different kind of like accounts on how many days Noah was actually out on the flood and stuff. Or I didn't even know about the story about how his kids saw him like naked, and then that's how his son got cursed. It's like just this other stuff, and you realize, wow, I was being fed a curated experience of this book. Yeah. There was a deliberate design in and that's true, right? Because they have like kids Sunday schools, they have different programs that they want you to sign up for, and different kinds of Bible study classes where they curate the kind of way they want you to interpret the Bible, and under a certain theological lens and stuff, and and when you get exposed to the other side, to the other stuff, and the questions just keep piling up, right? Like you can Google some of these away, maybe, but if you're really a real inquisitive mind and you're trying to put everything together, at least in my experience, right? I couldn't do it. It was like I knew too much at one point, right? And at some point you have to decide, I had to leave it all, and not just and for me it was I'll take some of this stuff and maybe kind of reinvent it. But then you get to the point where it's like, no, even that doesn't make sense, right? Even the pieces that I still want to keep, it just doesn't work, right? So, yeah, then what do you do after that? Now,
I was gonna say that. I would say like if as ex culture, I wanted to just want to let her know that I totally understand. I didn't go JW, but like I understand some of the concept, the aspect of being in a religion, and then them kind of like don't deal with like maybe excommunication, because I actually seen that actually at the church that I was in, because it was very, very strict. And when I kind of read some things about like cults and read some things about kind of like this collective thinking, then it really made me think about, as far as like, wow, is this really what I've been actually reading about? And then it took me some time, and I am telling my family about this, and they say, yeah, maybe you should just get out this as quick as you can. So so it's kind of weird, because for me, like even when I was in that type of group, for me, I don't know what it is, but for me, I just never adapt to the collective mindset. I always have my own particular mindset, and like my individual, and making sure that I don't go with other people are telling me to go with, but decide for myself whether it's just something that I want to go with or not.
Yeah, and I'll say this, like, you and ExCultBaby being a part of the LGBT community, I just can't imagine with that experience. It's like, I mentioned this before on the show, but like one of the reasons that caused me to really leave my community was when I found out that they had put on someone who worked in ex-gay therapy up to give kind of a speaking engagement. And that was right at the time when I was really learning about people's stories in the LGBT community in the church and stuff, and just the injustice that has been done to that community. Like before I was at the mindset of, oh, well, that's kind of part of the world, right? And like, oh, they really have more control than they think. They're all over the media. Like, look at Ellen DeGeneres and stuff like that. And then I kind of woke up and realized, wait a minute, no, like I'm in the majority. Like I am a Christian white dude in the United States, right? Like that's where is somebody who isn't like me, who is in that community? How are they supposed to feel safe in these spaces? How could they ever possibly express themselves? I've never had to deal with it like that. At best, like just being an atheist in kind of a Christian world is hard enough. Adding on, that your sexuality isn't as accepted, like it's a whole other ballgame. So I gotta say props to you guys for dealing with that, because I would. It's hard enough as it is, right? When you already don't believe the same things as everybody else.
Yeah. It really got me thinking about, as far as, because me, like, because I'm also black and Christian and non-religious. So with those types of things, it's like it's very interesting trying to particularly to try to not go this stuff, because even in the black communities, I mean, it's much more religious, and and also there's also like this machismo, I guess, culture that has that's kind of with the whole LGBT community, I guess. I don't know why, but I don't know why that's the case, but that is the case. But then myself actually also want to ask one quick thing. What's your viewpoint on free will, on like the whole free will aspect? Because I don't necessarily agree with the whole entire aspect of free will. Because one of the things they told me about with free will was that the idea is like you have the option to choose what you want to do, and stuff like that. We have options, we have choices. But then there's another aspect I kind of did a little research about, was basically like, well, particularly with religion, if God is all knowing and all powerful and all this other things, and He knows what you're going to do. Knows what you're going to do, and knows every thought. Regardless of the decisions you make, it's not truly free will, because He already knows what you're going to do, and already says what the obstacles are, and all the potential pitfalls you can get yourself into. So then there's kind of a big debate question between even within the atheist community that I've heard.
So yeah,
and
let's
then
go on. Yeah, finish up.
No. No. You
okay.
can take it from there.
Let's tackle this question and then kind of wrap things up from here, because this is a big one, right? The free will thing is really interesting. I think I first encountered it. I think I was looking at kind of Sam Harris's take on it, and I read his book, and I was looking at Daniel Dennett's book as well. I was of the conclusion for a while that we do not have free will, and that we're kind of determined by mechanistic processes. But then I kind of realized, well, I'm not sure if I'm being super clear when I say that we don't have free will, because obviously at least I'm trying to make options and make at least make choices and stuff every day, right? Like at least have that illusion of some kind. And I think the way Daniel Dennett kind of describes it is, well, like that illusion of choice, like that is our free will. Like that's kind of what we've kind of called it that. And so it kind of becomes really this fight on terms, right? And this fight on like definitions on like what we kind of mean by this, because I don't know anybody in their right mind who wouldn't agree with you. Like, yes, there are some things that are determined by our bodily processes, right? Like there are definitely things in our daily human experiences that we can absolutely measure that we don't have conscious control over, right? And nobody, it's always been like the extent of, okay, like does it go all the way though, right? And I haven't looked at this issue in a long time, but I still don't really see a way outside of like, because to say that I do have free will is to say that there is something outside of the mechanical processes that make up me that are in control of something. And I don't know how to measure that. I don't know how to examine that. I don't know how to look at that right. The only things I know for sure are the time, the space, and the matter, that kind of make up me and all of my molecules and things like that. And that seems to be the things that are making making all the processes and decisions happen. So, yeah, I guess that would, I can't remember what the terms would be now, but yeah, I put myself in the non-free will category, at least for right now, but it's definitely an open discussion. Yeah, go for it.
Sure.
Would you say that you're like deterministic?
I guess I would be in the determinist camp, but like that kind of implies like everything is kind of set from the beginning kind of thing. And I don't, I don't know if that's necessarily true. I do think that we can make predictions based on the things that we know, but like to say that that my entire path from now till death, I mean, all I'm saying is it's mechanical processes that are kind of determining that, not necessarily anything else. Like I want to make the distinction clear, because there's some people who think that the universe itself has decided, that something is happening there, and I don't think that's the case.
Right.
Yeah.
When I ask this, can I get is there if I can like get ExCult's perspective?
Yeah, absolutely.
Basically all the things I said.
For sure.
Yeah. I kind of missed a lot of this, I got to admit.
So we're just talking about free will. Do we have it? Yes or no? What's your take?
Free will, do we have it? I tend to kind of go in the determinist camp a little bit. Maybe not like hard determinist, but it seems to me, in my mind, it makes sense that, like, if I go back and think about, like, I could have had leftover mac and cheese or leftover chicken fried rice for breakfast this morning. And after I have the chicken fried rice and it wasn't quite up to par, I could think back and be like, dang, I should have gotten the mac and cheese. But I also think that if I went back in time, nothing would have changed and I probably still would have made the same decision, even though, being able to look back and go, aw, shucks, I should have done something else makes me think that maybe I could have. But in reality, if nothing has changed, I probably still would have made the same decision.
So, well, here's what I make the distinction with people when we talk about this, because the idea is like, oh, it's either a binary thing, like one or the other, but like people persuade each other to do things all the time. And like those like the ability to be persuaded, I would also argue is a part of the kind of mechanical processes, right? Like you are sending a signal to my brain that is making me change course on a decision. There's still mechanical things happening there, right? It's nothing spiritual necessarily.
And there are mechanical processes that make other people more likely to be able to persuade others.
Yes, absolutely. Like I definitely think there are some people in the world who can't have their minds changed about particular topics, no matter like what you bring to them. For example, like you could, I don't want to be callous and bring in any specific examples, but you know who I'm talking about. Maybe you have a grandma or something who has a specific way of doing things, and you just, unless you drugged her, right? Like they're not going to be changed. But even then, right? If you drugged her, that's changing. That's a chemistry thing that's happening, right? That's a mechanical process that's happening. So, you know.
All right. So ultimately, kind of from what I'm understanding is that you technically you're saying that it's probably more towards like kind of a mechanism that from my understanding, kind of like a system or something.
Yeah, like I think you could map out. You could map out my actions through physics equations if you knew them all. If you could, it would take a long time. But
you also have to. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I see no room for anything else, because if there was something else, right? If there was a soul or a spirit that was kind of guiding me to do things, I don't know how that thing is interacting with the rest of me. Because, and also like my ability for cognition and stuff has also changed as I've gotten older. And that's because of my physical body is changing, right? And so like my abilities to make decisions is changing and things like that. So like to me there's a very clear link between the physical things that's happening in me and, you know, the rest of my actions and stuff. There doesn't seem to be a soul or a spirit that's kind of guiding that. I just don't see the room for it, you know?
I definitely appreciate your perspective, because it's come up a question I kind of wondered about, because especially like because I'm still kind of like in this process of kind of deconverting still. I mean, it's been about 2 years since I left that church, but I mean, okay, but even set foot in a church at one point, I was like, I can't even set foot even in a church. But then over time though, I kind of been trying to just kind of somewhat deprogram myself and kind of like try to take care of all these the side effects of me come from like a kind of like a poison-minded
absolutely.
toxic environment.
Yeah, it takes a long time to get rid of all of that, you know, and for some people it takes a lot longer. I know it took me a while to get rid of, like, we're talking about hell anxiety, we're talking my prejudices.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
I still got that.
Look, I'll admit it. I've admitted it here before. I had prejudices towards gay people and like towards people in the LGBT community in general, that I think were kind of put into me by external forces. When I kind of realized, like, oh, this was all kind of teachings that were given to me from another time, just another world, and people just kind of kept it going for hundreds of years, and I'm just kind of a result of that. I could finally kind of let that go, because I could kind of separate that from myself as a person, and I realized, like, oh, I'm still a good person, right? I'm doing my best to kind of go back on what I've done in the past, and make the world a better place with what I can do now, and that's what I live for. That's what I try to do, and I'm glad. I'm lucky because I get to do a show, right? And I get to talk to other people like yourself, and that's wonderful. So many people don't get that right now. So many people are still struggling in their homes and can't escape the stuff that that they have to deal with every day, and I'm just so glad that I get to help people with that. So.
I agree. I think that's a very, very wonderful, great thing to do for yourself when you had to go through that process yourself, and kind of having to slowly kind of start to process everything. It wasn't easy. And then actually, believe it or not, I actually teach Sunday school the actual kids. So I actually was teaching kids about the Bible, but the children's Bible and the activities. I actually did that myself. No one didn't really know at that time. But even then, I was teaching young children that, and I kind of feel a little bad the fact that I kind of was like doing that. I did that, but at the same time, no, that was part. At the time, I thought I was doing really great things. I think overall though, I was still trying to be volunteering to actually watch people's kids, and then also teach them about the Bible and stuff like that during like the schooling, and all that stuff. So I even did that.
Yeah, I did too, man. I taught kids too. You know, And I had to look back at that and realize, yeah, that's the thing I did. You know, you can't change the past, but you
Can't change it.
Oh,
Yeah.
you guys,
on.
you
And
guys are focused on kids. I learned a whole other language so that I could teach deaf people about the Bible.
Yeah.
They were screwed over by society enough.
Yeah, just it's wild how what you can do when you truly do believe things. And that's why I always have trouble with people who are like, "Oh, you never really believe this." You know, like, "Oh, you were never really a part of this." It's like, man, you don't know me. Like, you don't know what I did. You don't know these people. You know, I know some former Christians who have done way more for the Christian community than people who are still believers, and you know. But that's where we are now. Well, Tony, this has been a great call. Thank you so much for calling in, and I'd love to hear from you again.
Sure. Definitely. I'll try to call back maybe another time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks again, bud. I'll see you later.